Chile's economy has been largely studied. The last 30 years of this country have been described as the Chilean economic miracle, with record economic growth, falling poverty rates, extensive urban development, the lowest perception of corruption in the region, and being the only country in South America in the OECD. Chile has really stood out. But recently, this model has been disputed by most of the population, as it is perceived that only a happy few have benefited out of this productive cycle. Streets were full of people rioting, destroying public and private property, and above all, demanding huge changes in the economic and legal framework in which the country has operated in the last decades. To really understand what has gone wrong, we will dive in history. Have you seen Chile's shape and location? It is the proportionally thinnest country in the world. This form has defined its scarcities and resources. Differing from countries like Argentina or Brazil, Chile couldn't develop agriculture or cattle as industries. Its mountainous geography made Chile an ideal place for mining. Between 1830 and 1870, the Chilean silver and copper production grew at an unprecedented pace, which transformed mining into one of the country's principal sources of wealth. But starting in 1873, Chile's economy deteriorated. Its exports were outcompeted by production in Canada, Russia, and Argentina. Also, silver mines were exhausted by 1974. It was during this context of economic crisis that Chile became involved in the War of the Pacific, gaining control of mineral-rich provinces of Peru and Bolivia. The notion that Chile entered the war to obtain economical gains has been a topic of debate among historians. As the new possessor of these rich lands, the national treasury grew by 900% between 1879 and 1902, mainly due to taxes. This wealth effect helped Chile in its process of modernization that lasted until World War I. The opening of Panama Canal in 1914 caused a severe drop in traffic along Chilean ports due to shifts in the maritime trade routes. Moreover, international trade collapsed, and state income was reduced to half of its previous value after the start of the war. This situation lasted long due to the Great Recession and the Second World War afterwards. The now extinct League of Nations labeled Chile the country hardest hit by the Great Depression because 80% government revenue came from exports of copper and nitrates. However, as an export-driven economy, Chile's growth picked up pace with a normalization of trade in the 50s. Even after a partial process of industrialization after the Second World War, Chile's economy was heavily concentrated in a few hands. Copper mining was the only competitive sector of the country. Many politicians identify this as a source of inequalities and as an opportunity to redistribute wealth generated by the mines. By the mid-50s, Chile started seizing and nationalizing private copper mines. The process started under the government of President Carlos del Campo and was culminated by Salvador Allende. This act of sovereignty was the basis for an international economic boycott, which further isolated Chile from the world economy. The presidency of Allende was a point of inflection for Chile. Not only mines were seized, an agrarian reform was made. The state acquired more than 60,000 square kilometers of land. There were nationalizations of large foreign enterprises, which were seen to be draining resources out of the country, and multiple forms of wealth redistribution were imposed. Chile was on its way to socialism. In the context of the ongoing Cold War, Chilean socialism was a potential threat to the USA, and the presence of a new communist country in the southern cone could serve the USSR as a base for intelligence or military purposes. USA and their allies lobbied and worked to destabilize Allende in economic and political ways. First, the nationalization of American companies was responded with boycott to Chilean copper, which meant less dollars and more ease to manipulate Chile's currency. And secondly, USA funded Allende's opposition, including the militaries that finally brought down the government, led by Augusto Pinochet. Following the coup of 1973, Chile's military junta implemented a long-term plan designed by a group of economists who publicly opposed Allende's government. This plan recommended a set of economic reforms that included deregulation, privatization, and general liberalization of the economy. Among other reforms, they made the central bank independent, cut tariffs, privatized the state-controlled pension system, state industries such as the copper mines and banks, and reduced taxes. In Pinochet's words, "We want to make Chile not a nation of proletarians, but a nation of entrepreneurs." The reforms kickstarted a rapid process of economic and cultural change in Chile, the so-called Chilean miracle. While in the economic front of the country achieved a median growth rate of 3% that derived a 60% total increase in its GDP during Pinochet's administration, the biggest shift was cultural. Both left-wing and right-wing parties that arose after the dictatorship agreed on keeping the policies that made Chile an outsider in Latin America, that generally remained stagnant in the 70s and 80s. The modern Chile was founded upon this agreement on the economic front. Balanced budget, stable rules, international integration, and private property were at the core of every administration independently of their point of view. For the last 30 years, Chile grew like no other country in South America, surpassing Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay in the GDP per capita, and became the most important case of successful implementation of economic liberalism. At least that was the international community thought until 2019. An increase in the cost of public transportation triggered massive protests against the president Sebastián Piñera, and especially the way in which Chile has functioned for the last decades. The sensation of inequality between Chile's classes, which in fact is not that serious if you look at the Gini index, and the perception that the country is rigged in favor of a few families created a violent ambience that took the life of 34 Chileans. Economists believe that Chile was the summum of economic success, but now they are wondering what has gone wrong. Only time will tell. If you want to discuss the video, please let us know what you think about it in the comment section below. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. See you in the next video.